Europe is preparing for a potential war with Russia. This is evident in actions across the continent. NATO has recommended all members increase defense spending to 5% of their gross domestic product, or GDP, by 2035. Leaders are signaling to Vladimir Putin that they are ready for a confrontation, should Russia decide to provoke one. We just haven't noticed it until now. This is the assessment of George Barros, an analyst at the Institute for the Study of War. On November 13, Lithuanian news outlet LRT interviewed Barros to discuss his perspective on Russia's actions and a strange term he uses, Phase Zero. So what exactly is Phase Zero? If Barros is to be believed, it's the first stage in a war Russia has already started with Europe. Barros told LRT, in military doctrine, including Russian and Soviet doctrine, before you actually begin a war, there is preparation of the battlefield. In other words, Phase Zero feat is the entire process of Russia laying the groundwork for a full-scale war it hasn't officially started yet. Deliberate acts of intimidation are a key part of this phase. Like the aforementioned airspace incursions, we'll analyze these incidents more deeply later. Barros reveals that Russia has plenty of reasons to initiate Phase Zero. I often have to make the argument that Russia has geopolitical and territorial ambitions on the Baltic States, Barros said, and the Russians also seek to completely renegotiate the security architecture for Europe, he added. Discussing his views with Western colleagues, does this mean Putin is fully committed to an all-out war with Europe, particularly its NATO members? Not exactly, says Barros. Clearly, the Baltic states agree that Putin is targeting them. Back in May 2023, LRT published a report exposing secret Kremlin documents. The documents, prepared for the Kremlin in fall 2021, were divided into two parts: threats to Russian interests and actions to overcome them. All three Baltic nations are well aware of Putin's ambitions. In March, BBC's Katya Adler highlighted how they are trying to Putin-proof themselves. She noted Russia's use of thermal buoys on the Narva River, the natural border between Russia and Estonia, and constant GPS jamming. Estonia, along with Lithuania and Poland, responded by requesting to withdraw from an international treaty on anti-personnel mines, implying a fear of land invasion. The examples we've highlighted may seem disjointed, but the opposite is true. The Baltic states are aware, while the rest of Europe is not. Barros says Russia's Phase Zero feat campaign is highly organized. Somebody in the Kremlin or in the Russian General Staff gave an order, he told LRT. All these Phase Zero feat actions serve to set up Phase 1 foot in Russia's plan, the kinetic phase, where the shooting starts and tanks roll. Another Phase 1 foot scenario could involve Russia making formal demands to Europe or NATO, such as halting NATO expansion. Barros says,
"We will not tolerate further interference."
That kinetic war may not have started yet, but Russia is already at war with Europe, and they've essentially told them so. Consider the comments made by Putin's chief spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, during a press briefing on September 15 with Russian journalists. The Kyiv Independent quoted Peskov, "NATO is at war with Russia. This is obvious and needs no proof. NATO provides direct and indirect support." Barros mentioned psychological ploys are part of Phase Zero, and this one targets both the Russian and European populations. On October 8, France 24 reported Russia is now accusing Poland, the UK, and the EU of conducting false flag operations to blame Russia. Of course, it's all nonsense, but we see Russia's Phase Zero feat wartime thinking. Putin wants NATO members to start doubting each other. So Russia is indirectly telling Europe it's at war. But there's also plenty of physical evidence, like the airspace incursions. Belgium appears to be Russia's latest target. On November 11, The Telegraph reported mysterious drones appearing over airports, military bases, and nuclear plants. This is the latest in a coordinated air campaign that began in September, when Russia sent 21 drones into Polish airspace, forcing a fighter scramble. Estonia dealt with 3 Russian MiG-31s in its airspace days later. The incursions continued in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Germany. We see the psychological stage setting Barros discussed. Putin is playing games with Europe by waging a war many can't even agree is happening. Some Western analysts with direct experience of Russia understand what's happening. George Robertson, former NATO Secretary General, is one of them. Russia is clearly at war with us. I've no doubt at all that even though we're not at war with them, they've clearly declared war on us. Peter Pomerantsov of Johns Hopkins University says when you see the large pattern, these small events are part of a larger strategy. There's more evidence. Since the West sanctioned Russian oil, Putin has built a shadow fleet of old tankers to ship it internationally. It's no surprise there are suggestions Putin is using this fleet for Phase Zero feed attacks. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said as much in October. Zelensky argued that Phase 1 foot may come sooner than Europe expects, predicting Russia is preparing for a big war around 2029 or 2030. If Barros is right about Russia and Phase Zero, then Zelensky seems to know something most of Europe doesn't: the war has already begun. So, is Europe doing much to respond? There have been plenty of statements, but not much real action, despite commitments to increase defense spending.
Thank you for being here.
In October, the National Security Journal published a report arguing that Europe isn't ready for a long war with Russia. The report cited former NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, who called for a credible collective defense system against the Russian threat. Barros has his own frustrations and advice for NATO's European members. First, we need to start calling a spade, he said. The analyst's point is that Europe needs to wake up and accept its position. Only then can it counter Phase Zero.